everybody, Conodger here, and welcome back to Automation. Today we are starting reviews of the Vector Automotive Challenge fan build competition cars, and we've got quite a few of them. I think I have a count of 22 in here as of right now. Okay, so here is the list of cars that we have. If you don't see your car in here, just shoot me an email and we will figure it out. If you need to pause the screen here, do that so if you don't see your car immediately. But that is all of the ones that I have in here. It is 22 cars as of right now, and I'm going to review 7 of them per episode, and just in the order that they are presented to me in this list, so nothing fancy there. And out of those 7, I will choose 2 that will go to the quote-unquote final round that you guys will be voting on to figure out which one is the winner. I'm going to let the game pitch me the cars, so I'm going to use the same screens to review every car and not go anywhere else, and I'm going to have myself somewhat limited to how much detail I can go into it right now. Once we choose the 6 or 8 cars, we'll see which that ends up being, depending if we have more entries. Out of those, I will go into more details. You guys can have a better idea on how you want to go with your vote. But for me, I'm going to reduce myself to a few screens that give me like a sales pitch from you guys as to why I should pick your car. And that should make it fair to everybody. Alrighty, here we have our first entry, and that is the Vista Pioneer Special. And this is by Smoky Gun. And it looks like a muscle-ish kind of car. It has an interesting front end that I tried to make this work myself with the kind of concave shape to it. I like the details right here with putting these indicators on the body line. That's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool way to deal with that line because it's a little bit of an awkward one in this body. So a nice touch there. Pretty similar grill and fixture setup to what I was using. The grill under the badge is a pretty neat idea. And if we swing around to the back, wow, lots of stuff going on back here. We got reverse lights and indicators. We have, looks like dual exhaust, but some pretty small pipes. Some vents in the back. That's an interesting detail. That's probably not something seen very often. Overall, body-wise, I like it. It's got a nice shape to it. The way the body is morphed. The fixtures, I think, are maybe a little on the busy side for me personally. The front, like I said, that's a difficult front. It almost kind of reminds me of the Avanti, which we have talked about in the past of the Vector Automotive Challenge. Kind of has a little bit of that look to it. It's a difficult one to pull off for sure, but I think it makes it work. Especially, like I said, the detail of the indicators on the front, I think, helps a lot. Just there's a lot of vents and stuff on this body, but let's see if those are put to good use. I see that the engine is called a 5.2 Cross, so clearly it is quite an engine. So basically when I'm reviewing these cars, these are the only tabs I'm allowing myself to use. I'm not going to go back to the engine tab or the model tab to see what you've done there, because that's, going into much more detail than I think we have time for or is necessary. And let's see, the drivability is 33 and sportiness is 17. That's quite good. Where is production cost is $8,700, so a pretty pricey car here. Has a 5.2 liter cross. That is a crossplane V8. It looks like twin four barrel, easy for me to say. Carburetors, 8.8 compression. This is a very American muscle car kind of build right here. It's cast iron blocked overhead valve, 16 valve. 5.2 liter, it's pretty large, 252 horsepower. Kind of expected a little bit more out of it, to be honest, but more power in 1967 with tires like this, it's a tricky thing. Does look like we're using McPherson's strut up front. No, it's double wishbone. Interesting, and it probably tells me that. Yes, double wishbone front, semi-trailing arm rear, which is nice. No solid axle here, which means not too great for the drag strip, but good for handling. The weight is very low, 2335, so that's pretty big when you consider the 252 horsepower. That would make this a pretty fast car, And if we go to the, oh wait, it's right here. If we go here, chassis, it is a steel monocoque with fiberglass panels. So that is probably what is making it a pretty light car, and beyond the fact that it's a small coupe too. The market analysis on it isn't great. It has good affordability in Track Premium and pretty good in Light Sport, I think. Yeah, Light Sport Premium, which is what I would expect. But not a ton of competitiveness. Seems like maybe it is a little too sporty, if you will, if that is possible. There is a penalty applied to this body as well. It is desirability is reduced by 2% because of an old body. This is not something that I'm taking too terribly much into consideration due to the fact that this is actually a pretty new mechanic to the game. What about speed and power? 0 to 60 in 10, probably suffering from quite a bit of wheel spin there. We did see those pretty narrow rear tires, and a top speed of only 117 is a little lower than I might have expected too. And let's see, yeah, that's kind of in line there. Braking seems pretty good. Weight distribution, it's pretty nose heavy with that big V8 up there. Handling wise, it's pretty good. It pulls 1G at slower speeds, 0.98 at higher speeds. That's very good for the era, so no problems there. And I think that fits in well with the theme. That is overall what I'm looking for, is a car that fits in with the theme of what Vector was doing with its Rallye. And that is a good handling, somewhat track-ready sport coupe. One thing I will be keeping in mind is what it does on the airfield track, and I will be tracking that for all of the cars. This one did it in a 144.12, $16,800. So it is actually slightly cheaper than the Intrigue Rallye. Alright, there we go. There is the Vista Pioneer Special. Thank you very much for your entry, Smoky Gun. And I would say my high points would be the styling. I like that you took a risk going with this body, especially with the concave front that it is really hard to pull off. So I am impressed by that. And I like that you kind of stuck to the theme of a muscle/pony car that could actually make some turns. And that is exactly what we're looking for. So good luck to you. And once I get through reviewing some more of these, we'll see if you make the cut for this episode. Next up, we have the AMW Magpie. That's a name and a half right there. Magpie. And this is also the Rallye edition. Looks like we have a 1967 16-valve L. We'll see what kind of engine that is. And this is by the Tom, who we all know is another automation video maker. Make sure you go check him out as well. And this car, man, if this was a concept in 1967, people would probably be like, what is this guy thinking? Not because it's ugly or anything like that, just because it's very futuristic looking. This is definitely a look of, I would say, an early 90s car, and that fits in quite well because Tom said in his email that it was inspired by the Mercedes 190 Evo. But era-correctedness looks probably not the hugest factor to me. I do like, and Tom is always really good with this, the details in the back here with the vent to put the taillights in, kind of breaks up that rear end. The big wing, the big square wing, it fits with the Rallye theme pretty well, but maybe a little proportionally awkward. This car overall has some awkward proportions with that huge canopy and kind of small body. So I understand that it's a challenge to get it to balance, and it does at least balance front to back with the big wing and the big slab front end with the big lip spoiler. So and the big wide fenders. I guess it kind of looks like a 1967 DTM car, doesn't it? Kind of neat. And this guy's got a drivability of 30, a sportiness of 29, so extremely sporty and drivable. And then total cost is low. One of the things he said in his email is that it's super light, and no joke, 1,691 pounds. That is really, really, really light. All right, well, let's look at the design tab here. And he's doing that with a steel monocoque and fiberglass panels as well. 171 horsepower, so a smaller engine. It is a dual overhead cam inline 6, and it is 2.6 liters. So that's good performance out of a 2.6 liter inline Oh wait, inline 4. My apologies. So it is a 2.6 liter inline 4 is actually quite large, so it's probably a torquey little guy too. And 10.5 to 1 compression on a 4-barrel carb. And we'll take a look at that guy. Looks like we got some long tube headers. Looks like we got a turbo valve cover. And a huge carb for a 4-cylinder, but it's gonna need it. It is going to need it. And then we have dual wishbone, and is that dual wishbone in the back as well? Yes, double wishbone front and rear. So this is going to be quite a handling machine. Go to the market tab. Doing very well in track. Actually doing very well in track budget, which is good. That's a tough one. That's a real tough one to get. Regular track's doing well, and track premium is doing well, so covering those markets quite well indeed. Car is very cheap, $12,000, even with the 5% markup. That's good. That's really good. Pretty curious about its track time. I think it's going to be significantly better than anything we have seen, and a 135.68. I forgot to mention last time that the Intrigue Rally's time was, interestingly, a 135.9. So, this car is actually quicker than the Intrigue Rally. Well, I don't mean actually. It's pretty easy to be faster than the Intrigue Rally. But, still a good job. The styling, honestly, isn't my favorite. It's just, yeah, I like the back a lot. That's pretty good. The front, it would need to grow on me a little bit. Just not too big a fan of the front. I do like the DTM kind of road racing-ish look to the car overall, though. The thing that is most impressive to me is how fast it is for the price that it is sold. Getting these numbers with a car that is this small is quite good and impressive, and I think you've done a really good job of kind of capturing the feel of the competition. All right, there is the Tom's AMW Magpie. And this is an entry by Clubsies, who has designed this much different body than we've seen previously, Rallye RS. Now this body is probably the counterpart to what the Intrigue is built on. It's more of the two-seater typical sports coupe rather than the more how do I put this? The Intrigue body is almost more of a sedan body, and this is more of a coupe body, even though they are both two-door cars, if that makes any sense. So I would say this is probably, I haven't really looked at all of them in detail like I'm doing now, but this is probably going to be the second most common body seen in the competition, just by my guess. Looks-wise, he said he did not get the Essentials pack loaded before designing the vehicle, so this is with all factory fixtures, all default automation fixtures, so probably slightly limited there, but still did a very good job. Anytime you build this body, it's going to look like a 240Z, and, it kind of does. But, still did a very nice job. It still looks good. I like the back. The spoiler just on the trunk is a neat touch. And as is the grills for the rear fixtures. Looks like we got dual exhaust on this guy. I like the chin spoiler. Lots of indicators on it. People taking note that in 1967 you had to have side indicators of some kind. So good job at doing that. And it looks like we have an inline 6 here. And he actually said in his email that his company is North European based and that they had this good chassis and built a sportier version of their truck engine to go into this car. You're going for my heart. I like sports cars with truck engines. And it looks like we have dual carbs on here. Let's go to the design tab. Two barrels on there, and it is a 3-liter inline 6 single overhead cam. Very Z-like indeed. You've built the Z before the Z, man. And let's see, anything else that I need to look here? Oh, we do have a strut car in the front here. So McPherson strut up front. Solid axle coil in the back. So this car will be good for drag racing. 206 horsepower and 2,000 pounds. It's probably pretty quick, too. Let's take a look. Oh, and once again, steel monocoque on the chassis and fiberglass on the body. Seems like we got a trend there, don't we? 4-speed gearbox, kind of what we would expect, looking at the markets. It's hovering in the track premium, and muscle. It's covering quite a few here, but it's not really dominating any of them. It's doing good in track premium as far as the affordability, and it's doing alright in track as far as its competitiveness. Looks like maybe it is just lacking in some of the finer details to get it up in these markets. 13.9, it's pretty cheap, with a pretty significant price increase there, so it's pretty cheap compared to the Intrigue Rallye, so that is something to consider. On the test track, it is indeed pretty quick, 7.5 to 60, 15.6 quarter mile, top speed of 122, and it does very good in turns, 1.13 G, 1.14 under speed, so it must have some good aero on it as well. Yeah, we're making 115 pounds of downforce at speed. That is pretty good. Only in the rear. It's actually still making lift in the front. I will be interested to see what this one does around the track. I'm not entirely sure how it will do. Seems like it's kind of set up in the middle between, you know, the straight line goer and the track performer. And it did it in a 137.59. Not too shabby, not too shabby at all. That's well within the range. Overall, I like the car quite a lot. There's not a lot to nitpick here. It's a good drivable car. It is pretty affordable, and you know, like I said, it kind of goes both ways in the way that it can be a straight line, you know, dominate the streets kind of car, and it can be a good little track car, a little track toy. However, it is quite a large car, so it does push itself into some different markets. You might be going up against some of the other European competition and some of the forthcoming Japanese competition. So watch out with the markets on this car. It might start to get a little muddy. Overall, I like the car. If there was anything I would say it is lacking, it is maybe just a little bit of a wow factor, something to separate it from the herd. It just needs something to really make it its own. But even with that, like I said, it does fit pretty well into the competition, and thank you very much for your entry. Next up, we have the AMG Spirit from Alexander, and once again, we're using that body, but we're using a different variant of it. Okay, well, I'm not sure if the taillights on this one didn't load or if it didn't have them. Either way, I will just assume that it had them and they didn't load. The front, interesting take on this body. Those are some small headlights, though. I guess there is two of them, so it could probably work. And then kind of the standard grille opening there and some vents at the bottom. Overall, a rather sleek-looking body with the notchback even. And you got plenty of trunk space for all sorts of things you might need to put back there. Alright, let's see. Drivability on this guy is 22, sportiness is 16. Those are actually somewhat on the low side. However, it does seem to have decent prestige and very little comfort, so I'm going to assume this is probably track built. 2175 pounds, 8.4 miles per gallon. Must have quite an engine in it. Let's take a look at that. Oh hey, our first V6. There we go. So it is a V6 with a, looks like a single 4-barrel. Yes, indeed. It does have a 4.2 liter capacity, so a very large V6. And it is single overhead cam. That's why it's producing 246 horsepower. That's pretty good for a car that light. Has a 5-speed box, McPherson strut front, and solid axle coil rear. Again, a pretty good drag car setup. Let's take a look-see at its track abilities. 7.7 to 60, pretty quick, and a 15.4 quarter mile. It does the actual track in 139. A 139 flat. Pretty good G's. 1.08. That is pretty good for 1967 tires. That is a challenge. And it does have a pretty good weight distribution. That V6 being further back helps out a lot. And let's see, let's go to markets. It's again track budget, track, and track premium. Looks like it's doing good on price there. Maybe just a little bit of competitiveness issues. I would probably guess some of that is due to the lower sportiness score. And I'm not really sure why the lower sportiness score without going too in-depth into the car's build. Could be the way it handles, perhaps. And we don't really have a clear way of looking at that in the... Well, let's go to sportiness tab here. And what we have, let's see, what's our biggest drawback? Chassis stiffness is a drawback. Maybe it's a body-on-frame car? That could be. That could well be. And suspension options is down a little bit as well, probably due to the solid axle in the rear. So it definitely has some issues in sportiness that's probably holding it back there. But obviously it is targeted towards the same markets that we were going for. Very cheap. I think this is the cheapest car we've seen yet. $10,780, even with a 10% markup. It's a shame it seems like it's maybe just a little bit too expensive for track budget, because that is exactly what I think this car is doing, and doing quite well. Alright, there we have the AMG Spirit. It has the V6 Soul. I missed that. It's got soul. Good car. It has, like I said, it's kind of going for a very budget track car. Maybe just lacking in a little bit of refinement to help it have some good marketability. But definitely does fit in with the theme of the competition. Thank you very much for your entry, Alexander. And next up we have the Atlas Corsair, and this is by Kenny. So we got a shoebox here. This is a very interesting body design. It's, I would say, it's kind of British looking. I don't know, that's just the feel I get. I could be totally off on that, but that's just my first impressions of it. We got lots of grill up front, but no, up front open grill. It's kind of all vented off. It's a pretty neat look. And then we got some quad headlights and some indicators. No side indicators. You gotta check your rules, man. Oh, maybe that wasn't true for the European market, so who knows. And then in the back, kind of a similar setup to the front, actually, with the quad taillights and then indicators. Overall, the body is pretty simplistic. This is not the most dramatic of, bodies out there to begin with, so it's a tough one to really spice up. I would say it could use maybe a little bit more sportiness to the looks, but maybe it makes up for its not sporty looks with some pretty sporty handling. So let's look here. It has a drivability of 21, sportiness of 31, so it does indeed have some pretty sporty handling. And it has good prestige, which is interesting for a car like this. So let's take a look at why that might be. 2236 on the weight. It is steel ladder. It is a ladder car, so it is not unibodied. And steel panels for speed. Single manual, single clutched. You know what I'm saying. It is front McPherson strut and rear single axle coil. And let's see, it is an inline 6. No, it is a V8. I was going to say, I keep saying the 16, but that's not right. It is a V8, 4.2 liters, single overhead cam, 10.2 to 1 compression, and a 4-barrel carburetor, 278 horsepower. This thing is a sleeper. Not a lot to look at. It doesn't make you think that this is going to be a really quick car. And you look under the hood. That is definitely a lot of engine for this car. 6.8 to 60, that is really good. And then we have a 14.58 quarter mile. I think that's the best we've seen. And a top speed of 146. This thing is really, really fast. 1.17 Gs in the corners. That is really good. So yeah, this is probably pure track car. Interested to see if it's marketable. It actually is track premium and track it is doing really well in, and it's actually catching some muscle in there too. So with a very different kind of approach, this is actually, I would say, the most like the Intrigue Rallye that I've seen so far. Which is interesting, because like I said, it really does have a very, very different approach to how it got there. And that is really cool. That's pretty interesting to me that you were able to do that. So good job. And let's see what it does on the track. I have a feeling it's going to be very good. Sounds good. Track stats, 134.29. That is indeed the fastest car we have looked at thus far. Alright, wow, yeah, I like this car a lot. It's not exactly my favorite looking car, but then it's not that it's ugly, or it's not that it turns me off, it just doesn't make me excited, which actually really works for this car because it absolutely has performance. So it would be a total shock to anybody to come up next to this thing for sure. And then on the track, it seems like it would pretty much dominate. So good build indeed. Next up, we have the CAA Filant. It is the 1600 GT by Pihanta. Sorry, I don't really know how to say your name. Pihanta_6. Pihanta maybe? I don't know. And it uses a similar body to what we just saw, but with a little bit different morphing. And looks-wise, I have to say I do kind of prefer the looks of the way this body is done. However, those headlights are huge. You're not going to have any problems seeing the road. I do like that they are inset in the grille. That's a good look. And overall, once again, I think the body could probably use just a little bit more work in the fixtures to make it a little bit fancier looking. The Rallye is supposed to be kind of a halo car in its own right, so it's supposed to look real special. It's something that you're paying a little bit more for to get something that is highly desirable and, you know, not often seen. So maybe just a little bit too subtle on the body. But once again, we have to see how it performs to really get a good idea here. This car is very drivable at 39.7 and has good sportiness at 26.8. It is very, very, very light, 17.21, and that is due to a steel monocoque body or chassis with fiberglass body. And front McPherson rear double wishbone. So this is a track car, not a drag racing car, pretty much. 115 horsepower out of a 1.6 liter inline 4 dual overhead cam, 4-cylinder dual overhead cam. It only has 8 valves. Interesting setup there. Compression of 9.5 to 1. Let's see anything else in here to really look at. It is a 5-speed box. That is nice. 114 miles per hour. That's pretty good for the low power, but that super lightweight helps it out. 8.2 to 60. That is very good. And 16.3, yeah, like I said, not a drag racing car, but a good little track performer. And I suppose while we're here, sounds like a 4-cylinder. It does a 140.8, so around the airfield track here, probably lacking a little bit of power to put it around. It has good Gs, I mean, good handling, 1.14 G, so, you know, it's able to put some tire to the road. Maybe just lacking in somewhere else in its performance. So it's important to note with this car that in the email, Pihanta it says that it was built for homologation purposes with the 1.6 liter category in mind. So that's probably why you're seeing a little bit different performance here, is that it's built within a certain spec, and I can appreciate that, and I will take that into consideration as far as the performance of the car, which is still quite good. And if we go to markets, it's doing light sport premium is good. That's nice. That's a category that I like to see, as well as track premium and track. And overall, it's doing well in a bunch of different sport budget. That's one I haven't really seen before. So that's all good. I like it. I like it a lot. $12,495, pretty affordable as well, even with a little bit of markup on there. And the markup is important. That's another thing I'm keeping in mind. If this doesn't seem like a car you could produce profitably, it's not then, I think, something that you should probably be making. if it's not a car you can produce profitably, then it's not really a car that you could produce. So that is definitely something that I keep in mind. Well, this is really going to start to get difficult now. This was a good entry. I really did like this one. It has, its own theme, which is cool, but that theme also fits in with the Vector Automotive, theme that we went with in the Intrigue Rallye. So that's neat, and it does really well at what it seemed to be setting out to do. So we got one more car to do for today, but this is already starting to get tough. Alrighty, and last for today we have the Sistina, and this is a very different entry right here. A body that we had definitely not seen before, and in stats that are going to be very different than what we have seen, so definitely going out in the left field here. Now this body is prominently a 50s, 60s kind of body, so definitely working off of a little bit of an older body here. But let's see if Noobtacular made this body work for him. So that is a 8.3 drivability. I have a feeling it's rear-engined, probably why that is tough there. Drivability with that setup is, yeah, like I said, tough. Sportiness, 12.3. Comfort is good, 17.6. I think that's the highest I've seen. It has really good prestige, too. So these are some interesting statistics that are different than the other cars, and being different is good. It sets you out from everybody else. The design of it has a V6, which is interesting as well. A rear V6 in this era, 2.6 liters. It's dual overhead cam, 4-barrel on there, 9.6 to 1 compression. Oh wow, and it's mounted true rear engine style too. Very cool. Very cool. I like that a lot. And it's just something I've not seen before in automation at all. So, good job there. McPherson front and double wishbone in the rear. It's a 5-speed. Interested to see if this 198 horsepower car was manageable around the track. It definitely is. I would say it's actually not too terribly off into the track build, but it definitely would fit into that category. With all that weight over the rear wheels and a super lightweight, what was it? 1,900 pounds? 5.9 to 60. Very good. And a 14.75 mile. I would almost say this fits more into like the exotic car territory than the, sports car territory. Which is cool. That's a hard market to try and get into in this era. So, interesting build, like I said. Really interested to see how this does around the track, so let's take a look. 145, so probably struggling from some handling faults due to the rear engineness of it. And if you look at the cornering, 0.87 G at slow speeds, 0.75 at high speeds. Definitely struggles in the handling department. So this is a street car. This is a car that you go around the street and make people look like fools with. It's something you look cool in. And it does a good job of that, that's for sure. And as I kind of figured, marketing this car would be really hard. I don't think the game also includes a market for this car. I guess it would be, like I said, exotic or super and hyper. Probably just needs... In order to make this car work, it would have to be too expensive to fit in the theme of the competition. So I do appreciate that you tried to make this car work for the competition, and I will take that into consideration, that you were trying to do something with something that really would be a struggle. So I understand that the marketing on this car would be pretty tough, but it does find its home in the Track Premium and Muscle. Alright, there we go. There is the Sistina Mark I. A very interesting build. Really challenged yourself on this one to try and make it work, and I think you did your best. That's a tough one, man. You put yourself up against the wall on that one for sure. So I do appreciate you trying something different, and it certainly will stick in my mind more than maybe some of the other cars. I don't think I mentioned much on the aesthetics, although it is pretty retro, for the era. It is a nice looking car. It definitely borrows some of the early Porsche 356 kind of styling, and I like that, so I like it. I guess that's all I have to say. Alright, well, now the tough job. Choosing today's two cars. let me think on it for a few moments, and I will come back to you in, well, in editing, like 1 second. So the cars you see open here are the cars that we covered today, and the 3 that I kind of earmarked were these 3 shown here: the AMW Magpie Rallye by the Tom, the Atlas Corsair, and the CAA Filant. Now I've forgotten how to say it. I think it was Filant 1600 GT. Those are the 3 that really stuck in my mind. And then out of those, it was a really tough choice between this one and this one. Actually, I've not completely made the choice yet. So just looking here, let's see. They're very similar stats-wise, and styling-wise, I didn't really love either one of them. So that makes it tough on me. This one I think was, a little futuristic looking, and then the 1600 GT had the very large headlights, but overall, I can't choose. Oh, this is tough. In the end, I've got to go with the Magpie, just because its stats were so good. This car is basically the quintessential 1967 rally car. It is great for the track. It would be great for actual rally, probably, like Target Rally, road rally stuff. The performance of this car in its markets and in overall on the track are just outstanding, and I couldn't not pick this car. And then the other car was Kenny's Corsair, which this car once again had just awesome performance and decent styling that I was kind of okay with. However, it was just totally sleepered out because this thing is an absolute monster under a sheep's skin, and that was just too cool to pass up. So there you go. Those are today's 2 picks. Let me know if you agree in the comments. It was tough, but those are the 2 I'm going with. They fit the theme very well. They're very good built cars, and I think they just, and that pretty much just sums it up. They are absolutely fit into the theme that we were setting out to build here. So, congrats to you 2 for making it to the finals. We still got a lot more cars to look at, so look out for another episode here in Automation tomorrow as we cover another 7 cars. Thank you again, everybody who entered. Just because I didn't pick your car didn't mean I didn't like it, and, it's... Overall, I've been impressed so far with everybody's entries as far as sticking to the theme, and it seems like you guys really got the theme and understood it, so that is cool to see. And I'll see you tomorrow with some more reviews.